top tip I would give global mobility professionals moving people into the US is to really plan. Immigration is always a big challenge for anybody coming into the US. The timing is a challenge. What we think might be 4 months could be 5 months. So really think through, manage expectations with hiring managers around timing, and think through when the person can come to the US. That way you'll have less stress for the hiring manager, but you'll also have less stress for the employee and their families who are now anticipating quite a big move and the stresses that go around that.
What is global mobility? To those who don't know what global mobility at all is, global mobility is the movement of employees from one location to another location, and taking into consideration not only their families move and their housing or their schooling or their personal interests, but also taking into the consideration their salary and their benefits and their pension and their Social Security and their tax implications, and maybe their transportation, their host transportation, their lease car, taking into consideration all the elements that make up their compensation and benefits package, considering one location versus the location one location where they're coming from versus the location where they're going to, and perhaps throwing into the mix a third location where they have their pension. So it's a very complex package of moving a person from one location to the other while keeping the focal point of their personal experience as a top priority.
My one top tip for moving people into the US is try to help them with one of their biggest challenges, which is that they don't have a credit history typically when they arrive. So if you can work with supplier partners that can help provide them additional support needed that's unique to entering in the US and needing to have a credit history, and what alternatives are available, what options are available, what other type of paperwork can you get to help fill the gap or to close the gap. I think that if you can find a solution to that, the transfers will be a lot more seamless.
I think just in general, when you're doing mobility, you should be showing your humanity in some sense. So it's not only just being kind, because whenever somebody moves to a new location, they're not always going to know what the norms of the office are or where the bathrooms are. Something simple like, okay, the bathrooms are here. That kind of stuff, or how to navigate everyday office life. Perhaps somebody needs advice on how to get to another part of the city, and you can make yourself available to them in that sense on a personal level. So I think just sharing your humanity and showing kindness, I think that's just a principle we need to live by in doing global mobility.
So I would say the main thing in the US would be two-pronged, actually, and I'll split that up, and I'm sorry I can't just give one, but I would say truly having a really solid immigration partner and a solid relocation partner. So both of those things are really important to make sure that the teams, that the global mobility program is successful in the US. US immigration law is so complex that any company that is starting in that endeavor really needs a law firm that will be able to help support through any permutations and really advise them on the life of that individual and their immigration process. And then similarly, I know I've definitely have friends that have in-house relocation type programs, and they do all those things in-house, but unless you have super high volume, if you're just starting out, having a relocation vendor that really supports you. Our relocation vendor, we strive to have a program that we call it guidelines. So instead of having like strict policies, our vendor knows that every single case can be a little bit different. So I think also having that vendor that has some flexibility and isn't rigid in their approach, and that could really help, especially a brand new program starting out, because sometimes, similar to what I was saying before, if you have an individual situation, we like to look at that individual and what those individual needs are. And everybody is different. So like you might have somebody who may just need some additional cash in a lump sum, and you may have somebody who really doesn't have the time to coordinate their own move and needs a full relocation service. So we want to be able to support both of those employees and make sure that their experiences are great. So I would say those are the two things that you really need to make sure that that mobility program is successful in the U.S.
You have an open mind. Expect some unexpected. Because in the U.S., our culture is very individualism. I hope I said it right. So if you come from a country that more again, if you are from Asia Pacific, it's more collectivism. I couldn't say it, but you have to have an open mind when you come to the U.S. To look at the culture, to look at even from the business perspective, right? The way the U.S. People running their business, you may not find that similar to where you come from. So you may be disappointed, but always have an open mind.
Whether that be ensuring that they have adequate cultural training, whether that be potentially considering the need to provide some sort of interest-free loan from a company standpoint to ensure that they are able to secure a car or to secure a home even, and ensuring that they have destination services.
Be prepared and discuss with your tax advisor or your relocation advisor whether you are eligible for 30% ruling, because there are certain conditions which should be met in terms of your professional education degree, but also related to your offered salary in the Netherlands and your previous history of employment in the Netherlands. If these conditions are met, you can benefit from the 30% ruling. So it's always better to be prepared up front than to get a not very nice surprise when you are already here and apparently you cannot benefit from this ruling.
I think it's really important to set expectations with assignees from the beginning of assignment, relocate, and really partnering with the right providers in the US to help ease the transition. So specifically what I found is individuals have challenges when they come to the US with getting driver's license and social security numbers, and it always takes longer than they had planned, and they have to set aside a lot of time. So preparing them in advance for the different things that they'll have to do when they get here, I think really helps to make the transition more smooth. In addition, partnering with destination service providers who can guide the assignee through that process has really proven to be valuable and has helped a lot of them to save time and frustration instead of having to go and do those things on their own.
I think the key word in global mobility is global. And I think as global mobility professionals, we all have to have some global knowledge ourselves. I think it definitely helps if you yourself have ever moved or been on an assignment, whether a short-term or long-term assignment, so that you can relate. I think it's also good if global mobility professionals have experienced a move, even if it's within the same country, and have worked with themselves, different relocation partners and vendors, so that you can relate to what the employee may be going through. So I really would just say there is no such thing as only being focused on your country, in this case the United States, because the employees that you're working with, they have another country to consider. So whether it's their home country or their host country, you have to have some knowledge, basic knowledge at least, and some connections in those other regions, whether they're on your team or with your different partners, so that you can properly assist a team member that's relocating to the US. So I think we can never be only focused on the country that we're operating in. We have to appreciate and accept that these employees are coming from different backgrounds and different countries. And in addition to learning the United States, we also have to be mindful and empathetic to the background and the culture where they may be coming from in their home locations.